Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're talking about Talisman's Return. This video is sponsored by CMO Games. More on that later. Talisman returns with the glorious new 5th edition and the same classic gameplay. Games Workshop isn't just about Warhammer, you know. We've made some absolutely banging board games over the years, including the likes of Fury of Dracula and the Warrior Knight. Talisman is another classic, a game that's been around for more than 40 years across numerous editions, and which is, and for fans of a certain age, a glittering shard of pure nostalgia. Alright, so we have a brand new Talisman, the Magical Quest board game coming out here. So this is the 5th edition of Talisman, and it's basically like a D&D style game, a total classic, like it said, been around for over 40 years. I played some of the old previous editions. It's definitely cool, it's definitely fun. Interesting choice by Games Workshop though. The premise is simple. 2 to 6 players select a character, a warrior, wizard, prophetess, a troll, and so on, and embark on a quest to claim the crown of command and rule the land. You roll dice to move and traverse a board, encountering card deck of enemies and allies, leveling up and finding loot, followers, and spells. It's all wrapped up in about 60 to 90 minutes. It's great both for family game night, for the midweek throwdown between friends. And for the first time since 2008, various themed editions notwithstanding, there's a new edition of the game on the way. It's the same fantastic game, but there's a fresh set of brilliant art and a handful of smart refinements to make the gameplay much faster without losing any of what makes it so magical. Alright, so here we can see the actual game laid out here with all the components. So we got our box, book, the tokens and everything. We've got some models to go along with it. Looks like 8 character players, the cards to go along with them, and then your like card decks and board and everything. And then of course a couple of dice as well. So pretty classic. Now they say it's refined. I'm curious as to what rules have actually changed in the game. But overall, it's not a bad setup. It's fun. It's cool. But of all the games that they could have brought back, this is definitely an interesting choice. Now, obviously, Talisman is a classic. A lot of people are nostalgic, and Games Workshop definitely taps into that nostalgia. But it's been since 2008 since they released like the last edition without like some of the offskirts included. So we're talking about a 16-year gap. So a little bit interesting to me that this is coming back. Let's be real, they've made some cool little games and sold them separately, things like Space Marine, or some of the other like questing style Warhammer games that are available at like Barnes & Noble, Target, some of the other stores, and none of them have done particularly well. As a matter of fact, I recently saw that like the actual Space Marine game was 50% off at Target, so instead of like the retail price of 60 bucks, it was on sale for 30. And I always see the games at Barnes & Noble's like massively marked down below like 50% of their actual retail value. So we don't know exactly where this is going to be sold, if it's going to be direct through Games Workshop, or if they're even producing it, or if this is going to be another one of those off-skirt games. But it also doesn't use like any of the Warhammer branding or anything like that. So it's not really going to do great for like cross-advertising for Games Workshop's main products, Warhammer and whatnot. But nonetheless, it is definitely cool to see it coming back. The 5th edition of Talisman, the Magical Quest board game, is produced by Avalon Hill and is currently available on pre-order. Alright, so there's some of our answers right there. It's produced by Avalon Hill. It contains 12 classic characters, 100 adventure cards, 24 spells, and all the other accoutrements you expect, including those iconic colored cones to demonstrate stat improvements. The new art is gorgeous and the refinements to the rules are clearly picked out. Okay, so here we see the miniatures that are included in the game. So there's more than were initially shown in that picture. So a total of 12 right here. These are all like your adventuring characters you can take. The models look cool and everything. They definitely have like a Talisman / like D&D feel to them. But to tell you the truth, I would not even know from like the actual box or from the models that this is a Games Workshop game if I wasn't already familiar with Talisman. The wizard looks like a different style there. The dwarf completely different. The elf. So cool looking models and everything. But they definitely don't look like your standard Games Workshop minis or like the quality you would expect from Games Workshop. But I'm not really familiar with Avalon Hill. The name sounds familiar, but I can't think what they actually produce or anything like that. Alright, and then we see the art on the cards. So pretty nice art right here. Definitely cool looking cards and everything. Nice and colorful. They have like the basic rundown of what each guy does. A little bit of that backstory. And then we see some of the actual like gameplay here with a magical object and then facing off against the enemy dragon. We won't spoil too many of the surprises, but the Elder Dragon and Crown of Command work in a smoother way, while leveling up is now a lot quicker. Now a quick message from today's sponsor. CMO Games has been selling Games Workshop products online for over 20 years. They carry the full line of Games Workshop products, including Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, Necromunda, Blood Bowl, paint tools, and more. Almost all Games Workshop products are priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games takes pre-orders for most Games Workshop products released at their earliest date possible. 12:01 a.m. on Saturday, they go live. Most of these pre-order products are also priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games offer free shipping in the US 48 with an order of $50 or more. Their customer service is top-notch and they ship most orders within 24 hours. Visit CMOGames.com using the affiliate link in the description and let them know that you heard about CMO Games from Warhammer Man. Now, back to the video. Talisman Alliances. Talisman has always been defined by its expansions. Each edition of the game has been accompanied by corner pieces of the board adding new areas, actions, and adventures, while other expansions have introduced Reaper, cults, and way back in 1995, the first ever plastic dragon from Citadel. So we have an expansion here, Fate Beckons, Talisman Alliances. The first expansion to the 5th edition was announced in the UK Games Expo last weekend, and we've got the inside track, entitled Talisman Alliances, Fate Beckons. It mixes things up immediately, introducing cooperative play for Talisman for the first time. You work together with your fellow players to overcome unique challenges called trials. Instead of claiming the crown of command for yourself, you'll join forces to bury talismans in the places of power, unseal the portals of power, and defeat the adversary of each trial. Overcome all 5 to complete the game and win together. This is a legacy format. You'll play 5 linked games, and as you complete each trial, you'll open envelopes and boxes to discover mystery cards and new figures to add to your next game. So pretty cool idea right here. Basically, like, the expansion has some card packs in it, some new miniatures that you add to the game. Obviously, you wait to open them up, and it's kind of like a surprise element. But essentially like a D&D questing style game. Very, very basic, very simple. And if it's been refined from the previous editions, this is definitely the type of thing that you could play with like your younger kids or friends who are unexperienced with the games. Wargaming, tabletop board gaming all together. Now keep in mind, this is a full-on board game. This is not your typical like Warhammer, what you would expect. But for board game collectors out there, people who enjoy like game night, something you can pick up, put on the table quickly, this could definitely have some appeal. The Talisman 5th edition base core game is currently on pre-order from board game retailers and will be out on the 1st of July. The first Talisman Alliance expansion will be along later in the year. So pretty cool, definitely has some nostalgia to anybody that's played this over the last basically like 40 years. This was one of Games Workshop's first games and one of the things that launched off the company altogether. And I know there's some crossover between actual wargamers and board gamers, so I'm sure there's some people out there that are going to be absolutely ecstatic for this. Me personally, I would much rather see them bring back something like Space Hulk, something that's much more on brand, much more popular, and going to sell exponentially better than this. But we'll see how it plays out. I'm interested if you guys are after this, if you played any of the previous Talisman games, or if you think you'd be picking this up. It's very clear that over the last few years, Games Workshop has been leaning in on like licensing out the IP, whether it be for board games, video games, or obviously like some of the other media, such as what we're seeing in the works with Amazon and Henry Cavill with the Warhammer TV show. The thing that really jumps out to me about this though is there's no actual like Games Workshop branding on this. No Warhammer branding, anything like that. So the average person who might be picking this up or see it on store shelves, if they're not familiar with Games Workshop or they don't know about Talisman in the past, there's nothing that really ties this to GW. And as we've seen over the last few years, they've been leaning in much more on like their actual IP and kind of getting away from like some of the other IPs that they've been associated with, working on like the big branding, changing over from Games Workshop to Warhammer.com. So this sort of goes in the face of like that strategy and definitely seems like it could be an uphill battle. So let me know if you're excited about this, if you're going to be picking up. For me, the miniatures aren't particularly appealing. The actual board game element of it is cool and everything like that, but I've got plenty of people to play Warhammer with, so this is an easy pass for me. And we'll have to see what this is actually priced at as well. Definitely curious about that. Special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring the channel. Check out the link in the description to save 15% on Games Workshop products. That's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and it looks like Talisman is coming back. And I'm out of here.